Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Moms for Justice. I'm Carolyn. So Richard, I already see somebody you need to zap immediately. How is everybody? So good to see you guys or hear you guys. Checking you all out here. Hi. Thank you so much. Hey, Clarissa. So we got Richard on today moderating. Frog is on. I like your name. Thank you, Jenny. Hey, Rob. Thank you, Kate. Welcome aboard. Hi, Sharada. Did you guys see my latest short for the little series I'm about to do? You guys are so sweet. Thank you so much. Hi, Jean. Okay, guys. So I was thinking, which I do too much of, I was thinking about Wendi and the other big case out of Tallahassee several years back. And I thought, wow, there are so many similarities and some differences too of these two, Wendi Adelson and Denise Williams. So let me get my glasses on for you here. This is a live that I'm doing to kind of introduce to you a series of videos I'm going to put out on these two cases because I think that they are so compelling and there's so many things that maybe some of you guys don't know about where there's like a connection between the two cases. I mean, they didn't know each other, but there was a connection in certain spots. So anyway, I am going to be comparing them. Both these cases really, as we already know, we're all, Adelson, Markel people here. But I had listened to the Denise Williams, Mike Williams death many years ago, and I was like really hooked on that case. I watched that trial, and there's so much great footage, and I want to walk through some of it again because it reminds me so much in so many ways of Wendi and Dan. But yeah, I think it's going to be fun to walk through it. So first, for anyone who doesn't know, which I doubt is the case here right now, but just in case people watch the live later and they have no idea what this case is about, the first case that we're comparing is obviously the Dan Markel case on July 18th, 2014. FSU law professor pulls into his driveway and he's shot and killed. Over the years, investigators tied the killing to a murder for hire plot connected to the bitter custody dispute with his ex-wife, Wendi Adelson. Okay, we all know Wendi. Wendi has not been connected, or at least tried. She is an unindicted co-conspirator at this point. But there was a bitter custody dispute with Dan and Wendi. Her brother, Charlie, as we all know, was found guilty November 6, 2023, and later sentenced to life. Prosecutors then they proved that he had used Katie Magbanoa, his then girlfriend, who was also with Sigfredo and had babies with Sigfredo and all that, who went ahead and was hired by Katie on behalf of Charlie. Sigfredo turns around and gets Louis Rivera, the head of the, Latin Kings gang. And the two of them go down as a hit team. And then, as we all know, September 2025, finally, Charlie and Wendi and Rob's mom, Donna Adelson, the mommy dearest of them all, the Wicked Witch, was finally convicted. So there's that case. Now, the second case. Some of you might not know about it. I think a lot of you do, but probably not as much, is the Mike Williams case. Okay, so at the time of this murder, Denise and Mike are married. Okay, Denise and Mike Williams. Let me show you guys a picture real quick, just so you know who I'm talking about here. Give me 1 second. Okay, well, I kind of have like this little, I put this little montage together so you could see all four of them together. On the right there is Mike Williams and Denise Williams. Now, let me tell you something. Mike Williams was like the sweetest guy, like dream husband, and Dan Markel was an amazing husband too. But Mike Williams, I will say the difference between Mike Williams and Dan Markel is Mike Williams was just super, super mellow and chill. And I think Dan Markel stood up for himself a little more than Mike Williams did. Mike Williams is very just, whatever Denise wanted. He was so in love with Denise. They went to high school together. In fact, they went to like the grade school together. Like they knew each other forever. And, probably, and I'm pretty sure I can confirm this, had only been with each other when they had gotten married. Like there was literally no other partners ever. So, but Mike Williams would do anything for Denise. Okay, now they were raised devout Christians. Okay, and then on the left, you've got the Jewish face. So those are different. But Mike Williams was just an absolute doll. And he grew up, he was raised by kind of like lower class, to middle class. Like, they didn't have a lot of money. They lived in a trailer home and, but they were never, ever without love. Never. Him and his brother he had this amazing mom, Cheryl Williams. She's the cutest little thing. Unfortunately, she's not with us anymore. But at the time of this murder, and for many years after, she was still around. But she really genuinely loved her son, Mike Williams. Now, Denise, she was more middle to upper class and kind of, was given everything she ever wanted. A little bit like Wendi, probably not as much money as Wendi, but, they did well. Her family did well. And Denise and Mike were kind of opposites on that stance. So anyway, they lived on Centennial Oak Circle, which is the east side of Tallahassee. And this is really like 10 minutes at best drive to Trescott. From Trescott to Centennial Oak Circle. It's really not that far at all. And you guys are just going to be blown away by some of the common things that we're going to hear about. And I don't want to do too much because I'm doing deep dive videos on both of these together. Okay. So I don't want to give out too much. I want to kind of make this more of like a preview, like a little bit of a chat, So thank you so much, Peter. I hope I didn't miss anybody. Thank you so much. I so appreciate that. Let me just make sure I'm not. Okay. You guys are such dolls. Thank you so much. I so appreciate the support. Okay. So again, only like a 10-minute drive. Okay. Tallahassee, they ran in the same circles. They really did. Now, Mike Williams vanished while duck hunting on December 16th of 2000. Okay, so try to keep the dates in mind here. Okay, so he went on a duck hunting trip with his very best friend, Brian Winchester. Okay, for years, many believed he had drowned. Okay, and there was a so-called alligator theory as well. So what happened is he never came back from his duck hunting trip. And people just assumed that he fell over. Duck hunters, they wear these things called waders, and they wear them on their legs. And I think they kind of like step into it like chaps almost, like you pull them up on the side, and they're like super heavy. So if you fall in the water when you're duck hunting and water starts to seep into it, the important thing they say is to get the waders off immediately before the water gets in. Well, the assumption was that because there were all these tree stumps in Lake Seminole, because this is the lake that they went duck hunting in. And by the way, it's supposed to be assumed that he went alone, but we do find out later that he went with his best friend. So anyway, they think that because there's all these tree stumps in the water, I mean, this isn't like a place that you would go. Lake Seminole is not a place that you would go and just like, with your family and like strip down to your suits and jump into this lake. It's just not like that. It's infested with alligators, and it's got like a lot of growth and like trees growing up from underneath the lake, and tree stumps are everywhere. So even if like you took a little motorboat out there, you could easily hit a tree stump and not know. And the water is so dark and murky that you can't see. If you're not navigating well, you won't be able to see. And then you could hit a tree stump and easily fall over. These boats are very wobbly. And then boom, if you like get water in your waders, that's it. You're going down. You're going down. Right. So the assumption was that he was drowned and then alligators. I mean, I know it's a horrible thought, but the assumption was that alligators ate him. So yeah, that's that. Okay. So so then in 2017, his best friend, Brian Winchester, and I'm skipping things. I'm not doing the whole thing here, okay, because I'm going to be presenting you guys videos about this. But his best friend, Brian Winchester, confesses, okay, in 2017. So, guys, 17 years later, he confesses. Now, there's a lot of twists and turns that lead up to that confession, but I'm going to do that. I'm going to more deep dives for that. His remains were recovered near where Brian had left the body in Tallahassee, because Lake Seminole is a good drive from Tallahassee, okay? So he brought the body back to Tallahassee and left it somewhere nearby. It wasn't far from where Brian Winchester lived. Anyway, prosecutors said that Brian, who was having an affair with Mike's wife, Denise Williams, and who, by the way, he later married her. So I'm probably confusing the heck out of y'all. So Mike and Denise were married, okay? And then Mike disappears on a duck hunting trip. And then Brian Winchester kind of moves on in there. Oh, he's my best friend. She needs to be consoled. Brian needs to be consoled. They were, they got together, and like in their despair and mourning, they got married. And they stayed married for a long time. Okay. And yeah, it's weird. And a lot of people started becoming a little suspicious of them, especially Mike's mother, Cheryl, who was not satisfied that Mike drowned and was eaten by alligators. Because alligators did not feed at that time of year. It was like a really cold time of year, and alligators don't feed on people around that time of year. So, and she also just had a bad feeling about Denise and Brian. So, yeah. So they were married. They actually get married. And it's just insane, people. The case is insane. Let me show you. Okay, this is Denise and Brian when they got married. I mean, how weird. Can you imagine being Cheryl Williams, Mike Williams' mother, and seeing her get married to Mike's best friend? And it wasn't that long after. They were married a very long time, but then things did not work out with these two, right? And they break up because Brian Winchester, wait when you hear the dirt on him, he's a real sleazebag. And just lots of indulgences, prostitutes. I mean, I'm just gonna tell you right now, it's really crazy. Well, Denise decides that she don't want to be with Brian anymore. Okay, almost 17 years later after Mike's death. And then Brian kidnaps her one morning because he can't stand at the idea of losing Denise. So Denise, this idiot, decides to go to the police station because Brian had almost just tried to kidnap her. And she goes to the police station, and let me tell you something. Leon County was waiting for her. They were waiting for that moment. They were really waiting for Brian Winchester and Denise Williams, or Denise Williams Winchester, to finally have a problem and break up because they were holding a big secret. Okay? A big secret. And the secret is Brian Winchester murdered his best friend Mike Williams so he could be with Denise. And Denise was behind the whole thing. Okay? So that is the case in a nutshell, not a deep dive, of Brian and Denise. Now, this is where it gets fun. So there are a lot of similarities and differences in this case. But, make no mistake, the similarities are probably more powerful for me than the differences. But let's go we have Tallahassee as the backdrop for both of these crimes, okay? The same district attorney, Jack Campbell, was around for the Denise Williams arrest and then also for Charlie and Donna. Also, there's life insurance payouts. Tim Jansen, we all know Tim Jansen, right? Tim Jansen is, legal commentator now, right? But he was the attorney for Brian Winchester when Brian Winchester was confessing and came forward and gave testimony to convict Denise Williams. Okay, so there's that. We've got two grandmothers who are fighting for justice of their son and the loss of a relationship with their grandchildren. Okay, so there's that. They fought very hard. Ruth Markel, I don't want to get my names mixed up here. Ruth Markel and Cheryl Williams are very similar because at the hefty price of losing their grandchildren, they fought for justice for their sons. And I just think that is so important. It's so admirable, and they are such an inspiration to us all. And then, ironically, Ruth and Phil go on to promote the Markel Act that gets passed. And, it just goes to show you, I wish the Markel Act was in place when Cheryl was struggling, because Mike Williams and Denise Williams, when the first couple, when they were married before Mike died, they had a daughter named Ainsley, and she was their only child. And Denise was using Ainsley as a tool to keep her from Cheryl Williams. Well, it's the same thing. Wendi Adelson is using her two boys to fight her fight and to, keep the boys from the Markels. So it's very similar in that respect as well. Hold on a second. How are you guys doing? Is anyone confused? Okay. Uh-oh. Yeah, Tim Jansen, right. Yeah, well, I'm gonna educate you guys. If you don't know about the Williams case, I'm gonna educate you guys and do a deep dive on it. But let me tell you something, it is so worth it. It is such an interesting story, and the testimony that I'm gonna be able to show you is just great. We'll walk through it together. But yeah. Okay, so I'll get back to my thing here. I'm trying to read what you guys have to say at the same time. Okay. So we've got those. So, and it's just crazy that Denise lives so close to Wendi, right? How crazy is that? All right. So also differences. Let me say this. I think Wendi, and I'm being really kind to Wendi right now. Wendi seemed way classier to me than Denise Williams. Sorry, but Denise gives me like trailer trashy vibes. She seems to slum it a lot more than Wendi ever did. At least, like Wendi, I think I think she hung with like a higher caliber crowd, whatever. I think Denise was just sex starved. Denise, again, was one of those girls that didn't date. She had no experience with boys. And then just ended up marrying her sweetheart, right? And I think what happened is that she felt she needed to live a little more than she did, and was wanting to kind of come out of her shell and become like this wild child. So she just got really, sex starved and just wanted to have, sex, right? And she ends up starting to drink. I mean, they never drank. They were strictly against drinking when they were younger, and they believed in the whole you wait until you're married before you have sex kind of a thing. And then so she started having fun and going out and drinking, Denise. So I don't think Wendi was ever like that. I think Wendi is very she's more classier than Denise, or at least tries to be. So there's that. Denise was raised a devout Christian, and then we've got the differences of the Adelsons and the Markels being Jewish. So, but religion does play a very important role in both these cases and in the story. So, I find that very interesting. Also, divorce. So, Wendi gets a divorce, but Denise refuses to get a divorce from Mike Williams when she realized she didn't want to be with him anymore. But they share the same perspective that it's much more advantageous to have the sympathy of others for a dead husband or dead ex-husband than it would be for him to stay alive. So I found that very, very interesting. Denise was all about how terrible it would look upon her to go through a divorce because she's Christian and her whole family's Christian, and she wanted the sympathy of being a widow. Now, Wendi was not a widow. I know that. She's an ex, but I still think she would have wanted to benefit from, how awful, we've lost Dan, kind of a thing. And I think that was much easier for her to leave that in everyone's mindset than this horrible divorce that's just not going right. And she's losing left and right in these motions about the relocation, and Wendi's looking really bad. And if Dan could just go away, I think Wendi would have much rather, she would have seen everybody kind of maybe sympathize with her. Oh, you lost your husband, kind of a thing. And I feel so bad for you, and how horrible for the boys. It's kind of like, the same thing as Denise. Like, I just don't want to be ridiculed, and it's easier if he's in the ground, buried. I'll get way more sympathy. So yeah, and I think there's a lot of women in true crime that do this. You know what I mean? That they're like, what a bonus it would be if he would just die, and then everybody would be like, oh, I feel so bad for you. And next thing you know, there's tuna casseroles showing up at your front door. And there's money. Do you need any money before you get your life insurance payout? Do you need help paying your bills? All this sympathy, and then people hugging you and loving you, and just, just feeling bad for you. It's almost like Munchausen syndrome. We need to come up with a name for it. What could we call it? You guys know what Munchausen syndrome is, right? Well, in case you didn't know, okay, I just want to say, please, no politics. I'm gonna just remove you if you get into politics, and if you attack each other too. Just, yes, please. You should be free to say what you want to say, but please do it with kindness. Okay. So, yeah, well, okay. So Annie says, I think Wendi is a bit of an info. Oh, I totally agree with you on that. I do. And Jeff had said a lot of like crazy stuff, right? When he gave his interview, he talked about her, being a kinky, especially with like Daniel Sack. But she hid it better. While Denise Williams would go out to bars and just get totally wasted and like walk up to the band, and she's the type to flash the band, you know what I mean? Like that kind of girl. And just, and they went out to strip bar. Denise would go into strip bars. She would, I do not think you would ever catch Wendi Adelson in a strip bar. I just don't. And I don't think Wendi would be so she wouldn't be the type to be like, banging shots and standing in front of the guitar player when the band is playing like Denise would. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's just my opinion, Okay. So, we've got that as a difference also. Okay. So infidelity. Well, that's up for debate when it comes to Wendi, because we don't know for sure. But because we have no proof that Wendi cheated on Dan. Okay, I feel that there is sufficient proof from Jeff and from Sarah Youssef that Wendi had cheated on Jeff. However, we don't know for sure if she ever cheated on Dan. Now, there's Miguel Edmondson, okay, who was right there to date Wendi as soon as this divorce happened with her and Dan. So you've got Miguel Edmondson, but we don't have proof that she was actually cheating. But I do suspect it, okay? So there's the cheat. So for the infidelity, that's up for debate when it comes to Wendi, but I do believe that it probably is there and we just don't know for sure. But Denise, she was a racehorse. I mean, this woman was so sex-starved, and she had lived such a monogamous life with Mike Williams that, and we know for sure she was cheating. She was having threesomes. She was out of her mind. Okay, and I'm not saying that's bad. Some people like to do that. I mean, you know what? I won't go there. Okay, so both Wendi and Denise, they represent cases where the central figure did not actually commit the murder. In other words, Wendi and Denise didn't actually do the deed, right? But instead relied on others to carry out the act. And they stayed clean while other people got their hands dirty, right? So that is something they have in common. And, in legal terms, it's co-conspirator, right? Principal to the crime by solicitation. So Denise was convicted as a co-conspirator for orchestrating Mike's murder by enlisting her lover, Brian Winchester, which you'll hear a lot more about in my first video on that murder. And Brian Winchester gets sucked in and ends up going and killing Mike Williams on Lake Seminole Lake. Okay, so he goes with him on this hunting trip, and it is the most chilling thing. He eventually confesses to this and tells the whole story, and it is so chilling. So, and then Wendi Adelson, while never charged, is alleged by prosecutors to have played a similar mastermind role, right? Encouraging, pressuring her family to arrange the murder of Dan Markel. This is all allegedly, but this is what a lot of people believe. And then, all this instead of getting her own hands dirty, right? So they have that in common. So Denise's case, it was just one person, though, Brian Winchester. So there's a difference. She only used Brian Winchester. Nobody else was involved in the murder of Mike Williams, but Denise Williams and Brian Winchester. So she only asked for one person to help her out, but Wendi needed an arsenal, and she wanted her whole family in on it, allegedly. Also, Wendi worked at FSU, and so did Denise. Denise worked in the accounting department at FSU. In fact, when she finally gets arrested, she is walked out right there in front of everybody in public, coming out of the building at FSU. I thought that was, just interesting when you start adding these things up. Okay. All right. So thank you, Richard. So if you continue to see anyone attacking the other person, just remove them from the chat. Or you guys can just be nice to one another. But I want to say this one thing. I don't want to be one of those channels where like you kick off everybody that doesn't agree with you. Because I really think it's important to hear the other side of things. So I'm all down for that. So, if you have a different opinion than the majority of people, just say everything with kindness. And then the other side, I ask the other side to also try to be respectful that person has a different opinion. But if you're, slinging nasty comments at each other, that's not good. Okay. So, all right. So the FSU location. Did anybody know that she worked at FSU also, Denise Williams? I was curious if you guys knew. All right. Thanks, Richard. Jack Campbell. I want to go into that a little bit. Okay. So Jack Emmett Campbell. Okay. Also John Campbell, but they call him Jack, just so you guys know. State Attorney for Florida, 2nd Judicial Court. He began this role on January 3rd, 2017. Okay. Which covers all of Leon County, which obviously includes Tallahassee. Before that, he had served as a special assistant U.S. attorney in the same circuit and as chief felony trial attorney in that circuit. Okay. He graduated from Cumberland School of Law and was admitted to the Florida bar in 2002. And he first won the state attorney seat in November 2016 and then took office January 2017. So I just wanted to look at all the dates of all the arrests. So Garcia and Magbanua, they were arrested when Willie Meggs was the state attorney's office. Okay. Which he kept that office until January 2017. And then every other major arrest, Denise Williams, Charlie Adelson, and Donna Adelson all happened under Jack Campbell's leadership. And I'm going somewhere here, so hang in with me because I've got a point I want to make. So Campbell's office handles the prosecutions and convictions of Denise Williams in 2018, Charlie Adelson 2023 conviction, and Donna Adelson 2025 conviction. It's the time lapse that I'm interested in here. Okay, so both Mike Williams and Dan Markel cases show how long it takes to bring alleged masterminds to justice, right? Mike was killed back in December 2000, okay? But his case was treated as an accident for so many years, despite Cheryl Williams coming forward and saying, somebody help me. You know what? Look at this, guys. This is Cheryl Williams right here. This woman would go out and stand in the street with picket signs for her son, Mike. Everyone ignored her. But what happened that was worse than that is they started calling her crazy. There's the crazy lady with the ponytails. She's the absolute most adorable lady I've ever seen in my life. I'm not kidding you. And when she gives her impact statement, I mean, honestly, I'm going to do a video just on Ruth and Cheryl's impact statements because they're unbelievable. I mean, I can't pick one. They're both so good. But this woman, was this cute, frail, small woman. Her husband wasn't around anymore. Mike's father wasn't around anymore. And she would stand out on the street with these signs. And people would say, oh, there's that crazy Cheryl Williams again, who believes that her son is still, did not drown in Lake Seminole. She thinks that he was murdered. When we all know, and this is what the people said, we all know that he was eaten by an alligator. Well, this woman fought and fought and fought. Okay. And man, and then on top of it, she would go to Denise's house to try to see Ainsley. And Denise would like yell and scream at her. And she's just this little lady sitting there who just wanted to be with her grandchild. But one thing Cheryl didn't do was like kiss her butt or anything. She was just like, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to stop asking questions. She would go, I want to move on. Denise would say, I want to move on with my life. And this is like not long after Mike was killed. You know what I'm saying? Denise wanted to move on so fast. She wanted to cash in that life insurance, like $2 million. And guess, by the way, who sold the life insurance policy? Guess. It's Brian Winchester, who is a life insurance salesman who sold Mike Williams all this money, large amount of life insurance. And then Denise had trouble collecting on it because they never found the body because Brian Winchester went and put it somewhere else. And Denise thought, well, he drowned and he was eaten by an alligator, so that should be enough for me to get my life insurance. Well, the life insurance company said, no, we need proof of death. We need proof that he died. So Brian Winchester goes back to Lake Seminole 6 months after Mike's death and plants his hunting jacket and his waders into the water, and they're found within days. And guess what? They got the certificate of death immediately. And then she collected on all this money, and Brian Winchester marries Denise, and now they live happily ever after with $2 million. Well, Cheryl Williams knew something was up, and despite no one helping her anymore and people calling her the crazy lady with the ponytails, it does have a happy ending. I promise you. It does have a happy ending. So anyway, back to the time lapse. So Mike was killed December 2000. And no arrest came until finally there was a screw up in the marriage between Brian Winchester and Denise Williams. And then he tries to kidnap her and all this other stuff. She goes to the police. And then eventually, Brian Winchester comes forward and says, Denise wanted me to kill her husband in retaliation for her going to the police about the kidnapping. So Denise Williams is finally arrested at FSU not law school, but FSU, the college, arrested in May 2018. I am not with it today. Sorry. This is 17 and a half years later. Okay. So keep that in mind. Dan Markel is murdered July 2014. Hitmen are arrested within 2 years, but it took 8 years to arrest Charlie Adelson in 2022, and then 9 years to arrest Donna Adelson in 2023. So these timelines, they highlight, how complex murder for hire cases often, require years of investigation before prosecutors move on, before they move on to the alleged planners. However, it's Jack Campbell and Willie Meggs, okay? Now, Jack Campbell, we all know, struggles with an indictment for Wendi, obviously, right? It's up to him if Wendi ever gets an arrest. But I wanted to look at his history and the pattern of things that happened in Tallahassee with the Denise Williams case. Because it is ironic that Charlie and Donna, it took forever to get Charlie and Donna. Okay? Now, Willie Meggs allegedly has some association with Peter Weinstein, who is the godfather of Wendi. Yes, you can be Jewish apparently and have a godfather. I've looked it up. I've checked it out. You can check it out too. Now, this is not to say that this is a common thing. It is not. Most Jewish people would be like, what? That's crazy. But has it happened? Yes. There has been Jewish people that have declared so-and-so is my godfather or so-and-so will be my child's godfather. This has happened. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but it's true. But what makes it even more credible is that Charlie himself has been quoted to say that, yes, Peter Weinstein is Wendy's godfather. It is on wiretap calls from his own mouth. So this is not alleged anymore. This is a fact that he is Wendy's godfather, according to her own brother, Charlie. So there's that. But Peter Weinstein was a judge in Broward County. Now, these people that run in these legal circles, especially judges, they all know each other. And Willie Meggs, I believe, we all believe, knew Peter Weinstein. And there has been, there's been some hints to that, even in, I think the Florida Political is like a newspaper article there I read. Something about that even implied it there. That's a whole other deep dive I can do. But I just want to say Willie Meggs at the time of the Markel case was not willing to go anywhere near Charlie or Donna, but had no problem getting Katie and Sigfredo Garcia. So, I'm about to talk about Tim Jansen in a second. So he was not willing, Willie Meggs, and just all of a sudden, Willie Meggs is now retires out and Jack Campbell comes in, and only then did Charlie get arrested. Doesn't that speak like volumes to you? I mean, it does to me. So, but anyway, overall, Leon County on two of the most high profile murder cases in all of Tallahassee are these two. And it took forever to get to the bottom of what was going on. And it's just really, it's just ironic, right? So there's that. Okay, so let's see. Motive. In the Adelsons, it was family control, custody, dispute, relocation. Okay. Was insurance a motive for Wendi? Maybe. There's also, let's see. How about with investigation and evidence between the two? All right, so my takeaway on that is that the Adelson case relied heavily on conspiracy evidence and communications amongst many players, while the Denise Williams case was basically all on a firsthand confession of Brian Winchester and then recovered remains after 17 years. So there's that. And then as far as like the legal strategy and the trials, the Adelson trials emphasize conspiracy for hire with no confession by a principal family member. And the Williams case is hinged on Winchester's plea, immunity deal, and a confession corroborated by recovered remains. By the way, when I do more on Williams, there is a connection between Brian Winchester from the Williams case with Wade Wilson, the tattoo-faced Deadpool killer. Just so you guys know. It's really, really interesting. And when I first started the channel, we were like a beginner channel, and like me and Jocelyn were on. We did like a bunch of different lives on Wade Wilson, and we had so much fun. We had so much fun talking about Wade Wilson because, horrible what he did. He killed 2 women. It was just disgusting what he did, but he was in Leon County Jail with Brian Winchester. So I just thought that was interesting that he pops up in that. Let me check. If you guys have any questions, give me the big Q so I can see you. I'm going to scroll through and see what's going on. You guys being nice to each other? Are you guys on good behavior? All right, let's see what we got. Give me big cues if you've got a question or you want me to see something. Hi, Trumpet and Talk says, I believe that Wendi does have a nice goofy side and wanted to get along, but I believe that Donna controlled her and Donna won out. I believe Wendi stays away from the family, partly because, where's the rest of it? They know that they are toxic and dangerous. Well, that may be true. That may be true. I think there's... Okay, so let me break that down. Does she have a goofy side? For sure. I think she has this weird, twisted sense of humor. And I think that comes across, I think she thinks she comes across as cute and goofy and like innocent. But if you really look at some of the things she says when she's trying to be funny, she's pretty conniving, I think, you know. Did Donna control her? I think to an extent there was some control from Donna, but I think Wendi was smarter than Donna and Wendi knew exactly how to play Donna. That's what I think. And I don't think Donna ever won with, I think Wendi knew exactly what she was doing. But I respect your opinion on that. Was it Campbell's office that Harvey was giving money for re-election? You know, I don't have the answer to that. I'm not sure. I don't know. But it has always been implied that they were heavily involved with those circles. And because they, there is this connection with Peter Weinstein. And don't forget, Peter Weinstein's son was representing Charlie for a little while when Charlie first got arrested. This is before Rashi. And they were, super protective. The Weinsteins were super protective of the Adelsons, which tells me that, that I think that they were so close that it would not surprise me if Harvey gave money to them. Sure. Let's see. I'm scrolling through, guys. All right. May she rest in peace. She never gave up on seeking the truth. For Cheryl Williams. Yeah. I can't wait to show you guys her she gave 2 statements actually, impact statements, and they're just I cannot sit through it without crying. Like no dry eyes. None. All right, let's see. Oops. I guess saying F Tim Jansen was a little bit harsh of me. He's a Wendi apologist, and I don't like the guy. My bad. I didn't mean to start anything. I'm a longtime listener and contributor. Yeah, I don't mind an occasional whatever. I just don't, you guys know what I mean. I just don't want anybody being like horrible to each other, but I don't care about the language. I mean, I don't curse, but I don't care when other people slip a word. It doesn't bother me. Hey, if you don't like Tim Jansen, and by the way, I'm going to talk about him in a second. Yeah, I'm like this about him too. I'm like, he's a little sus to me. Some of the things he has said, I don't really agree with. Let's see. All right, I'm looking for a question. I'm scrolling through a little faster. All right, I'm going to come all the way down here. All right, here we go. All right. All right. Do you think Wendi's book will be used if she is ever brought to trial? Mark McKay. I do. I think that book, it's circumstantial evidence. I mean, there's nothing, that, but I mean, a jury sees some of the excerpts of that if they even allow it in. But if she got arrested, I would think that there would be a good argument or motion to allow the book in because, the book is, it's uncanny how much it implies that it's about her, right? So I do think that it would be included for sure. Let's see. All right. So, all right. Well, since some of you guys were mentioning Tim Jansen, let's see. I do have some notes on him. Well, Tim Jansen represented Brian Winchester. And Tim Jansen has been very, 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 very outspoken about Wendi Adelson and is a frequent guest, if not kind of a permanent guest on STS, right? I think he's a very smart, intelligent man. I think he's probably a really good attorney, but he's confusing me because 1 minute he has said that he does not support her and is talking about should be arrested, like right after Donna Adelson's trial, right? He came out and was like something. Look, I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was something along the lines of Wendy's next or Wendy's going to be arrested soon. I mean, yeah. And then a couple weeks later, he said like the complete opposite of that. I'm just like, okay. And then, of course, there's the bomb that happened. Poor Joel on STS probably did not see it coming when Tim Jansen said, I just heard, right, that Donna was offered time served if she would flip on Wendi, and I don't know. I'm trying to put myself in Joel's position because I'm doing a show too. My show is like, teeny tiny compared to his, but I'm trying to pretend if I was Joel and I had that platform with that many people on it, if a guest said something that was like, you better get that right. That's a piece of information that you better have confirmed. I would have been like, I bet you there was some screaming in the studio when that show went off the air. Cause I would have been like, what'd you say that for? Right. I mean, and then it ended up being disputed. It became controversial. And when I heard that, I felt really bad for Joel. I don't know. He shouldn't have said that. The other day I was on a live and somebody was like, came onto the chat and was like, Wendy's just been arrested. And I was like, that, and I didn't show the comment or anything because I had control over that because I knew that you better be right about that before I'm going to air something like that. So I didn't put the comment up, but instead I announced somebody's writing this. I doubt it's true, kind of a thing. But it's just like, sometimes you just can't control what people do or say. And I guess when you have a lot of guests on, and Tim Jansen is supposed to be considered a very valuable source of information. I think he's been correct about a lot of information in the past, but that was just a big no-no in my eyes. The job of a journalist is merely to sell a story to get all the clicks and views. You're right. And all the YouTubers are acting as journalists, even though I'm not one. But still, like, I don't want to give out wrong info. I do my best, and already there's been things that I've been like, okay, I wasn't completely right about that because I'm discovering the information the same way you would, right? And sometimes people have said, okay, that's not the case. What was it recently? There was something recently. Okay. I was under the impression that when Wendi went to the crime scene tape, that the reason why or how they knew that she went to Mosaic was because I did know for a fact that the police immediately got her information somehow. Like they figured out that she was the next of kin and, all you gotta do is sit in your police car, take your thing and say, I need Dan Markel's next account, whatever, pull up the information, and then you'd get the car, the tag number and all that. And then it was implied after that, well, because of that information, they did recognize her van, which you pulled. Oh, well, that's the van right there when Wendi pulls down the street. So the assumption was, and it made a lot of sense to me, was that she turned around and went away, and they probably went, well, that's her. She's on the road. Pick up this, whatever their little, what do you call those things? A CB or whatever, and be like, Bolo for a red, van with plate number this and this and whatever. So I always just told people that I thought that she was, basically trailed after getting to the end of the street. So we have now learned since the Isom interview that just came out under Deep Dive True Crime that they simply got her name from the utilities that were in the mailbox, I guess, or wherever. And then they looked up her info, and then they tracked her on Market Street, but they still didn't know where on Market Street until Detective Isom drove down Market Street and started looking in all the parking lots, and then he sees the van with that tag number parked at Mosaic. So how did I go into all that? I went into all that because just to show you that nobody's perfect, and we don't always have our information perfect. We try, right? But for STS to have an attorney get on and say it matter-of-factly that he had just heard from a very reliable or credible source that Donna was offered this plea deal was a pretty big deal compared to, well, I had how they got her at Mosaic a little wrong, right? So, yeah, cell phone pings, Glenn, absolutely. I agree. So yeah, I haven't been reading everything you guys are saying, but I know there was some commotion on here before. But Glenn is a firm supporter of Wendi, and yeah, that makes me go. But I don't, I respect the fact that there are going to be people that support her. And you know what? We need that healthy debate because that's the way juries think, right? Juries, you could have somebody on the jury like my co-host Jocelyn, who is now kind of leaning towards Wendi's guilt now, or somebody like Glenn to be on a jury. It's, happens all the time. So it's important to not exclude people that don't have the same opinion as you. And I know that there are channels that are literally, they just zap people for not agreeing with you, which is so stupid. It is so dumb. You're getting zapped if you're evil and mean and you're threatening or something like that. Or things get heated. That's when you should get zapped. But just because somebody has a different opinion, I mean, really, we can all be respectful towards one another, right? Okay, so that's all I had to say about Jansen. But I do find it ironic that he was the attorney for Brian Winchester. Really, really interesting stuff. Yeah. Okay. And I have I didn't bring my tea in here. I left it in the kitchen. All right. So unanswered questions. I wrote down some questions here I have for all of you. Now, again, hang in there if you don't know the whole Williams case, but I'm going to be putting out something really, really soon, in the next couple days. And I'm going to do a deep dive into that. But I'm going to be incorporating Wendi and Dan to the same, into the middle of that case. I might even interweave the stories. I'm going to do it and try to be creative about it. I do have a question here. Oh, I love your name, Afraid Not. Afraid Not. Do you think Georgia could be letting Wendi sweat until she's ready to offer her a plea less than life without parole? Do you think Wendi would accept? I don't think Wendi would ever accept a plea deal at all. But I'm really worried, guys. I'm really worried that because there has not been an arrest, and after those interviews that came out, I'm just starting to be worried that maybe they are done. So yeah, just really, really concerned. Let's see. I would say I do have hopes for this one thing. I do have high hopes that Charlie is going out of his mind and is just maybe would be the one that would come forward and talk. What do you guys think? I mean, Charlie really, if you think about it, he could be sitting there salivating in his cell, thinking if I just tell them what happened with Wendi, I could get out maybe. You know what I mean? I don't know. What do you guys think about that? All right, and I do have I have questions for you guys. Let's see. All right. So I want to keep it more Adelson Markel related. I do have some about Winchester, but since you guys don't know anything about the Williams case or Winchester case, all right, first of all, do you think Donna is going to get a new trial because of the juror conduct that came out? Do you think it's enough? Do you think that Everett is going to allow that to even happen? I'm very curious what you guys got to say about that. Okay. Did you notice Deep Dive True Crime has an owl on his desk? It's kind of eerie, right? Yeah, I did notice. You know, he's always lived in Tallahassee. I'm just kidding. I'm not making any suggestion. I think he's an amazing channel. I'm not saying that. It was just fun for a second to think of that. But all right. But it is weird. Why does he have an owl on his desk? It could just be because he's so, devoted to the case that the owl stands for something. Yeah, stands for his devotion to this case. I don't know. Do you think they are waiting? Hi, Rosie. Do you think they are waiting for after Donna's sentence? I don't know. I keep thinking I keep thinking to myself, we keep saying to ourselves, well, it's because Georgia is holding this information close to her. They're really waiting until this. They want to make her nervous about her kids and let it stew in her some more. And I'm like, what if it's not going to happen at all? What if it's not supposed to happen? And I'm just like, I don't want to ruin anyone's day, but I have serious concerns because Isom came out and then there was something else. There was another video, right, that came out recently in the last 3 days where I was like, now this person's talking too. Why? Who was it? I forgot. There's somebody else that also gave me that same feeling I had when I saw the Isom interviews, and I was like, oh no, this isn't good. The fact that he's talking makes me think that there's not going to be anything else. And then there was another video that came out recently, and I forgot what it was, and it made me think, oh no. I don't want nothing to do with that owl. A few channels have the owl. It's like a mascot until Wendi gets caught. I know, right? I can't with the owl. I heard the owl means something really dark. I didn't even look it up because I don't like to look up dark stuff like that. That's what I have hopes. I keep holding on to what she said, right? That Georgia Kappelman, just as soon as Donna's trial was over, she came out and she said, stay tuned about that. Okay. And I'm just holding on to hope. Okay, so you're mentioning inquisitively me. Hi. Mentor lawyer previously stated on another video the owl is from FSU University. Well, I don't know about that, but I do know it's the mascot for Brandeis, which is the school that Wendi went to. And I'm pretty sure, well, she's gone to a lot of schools, but I heard it's her school mascot was an owl. So she could have had an old shirt from when she went back into school, when she was back into school and had worn it. Okay. Sub Rosa. So ironic to watch that video of Charlie like a caged rat eating his bag of Wendy's. I'm laughing because, yeah, well, I'm not going to show you yet. I did something fun about that. I'm not going to show you yet. It's coming out soon, though. You will see it. Keep watching my channel. If there's something funny about Charlie, I got for you guys. Let's see. Okay, this is interesting. Is it Keenor Spielman? Hi, how are you? Okay, so they write, the prosecutors fear a Wendy's acquittal would negatively impact their careers, so they're holding back. You know, respectfully, I really disagree with that. I think they've done a masterful job. Look at everybody they've put away. I think that that says so much for them, and I don't think that them not getting Wendi is going to pull them down from all those victories. I really don't. Oh, okay. So this is interesting. Justice Moon, True Crime. Georgia Kappelman gave an interview with STS 3 years ago before Charlie's conviction and before Donna's arrest. Right. I'll tell you one thing. If she comes out with an interview anytime soon, it's all over, people. Like if Georgia Kappelman does an interview with somebody, she should pick me, right? I mean, is she a mom, by the way? I don't know if she's got kids. I got to look into that. I don't think she does. But maybe she'll pick my show to do an interview on. I'll be really nice to her. But anyway, even if she doesn't, if she does an interview, guys, forget it. It's over. We're all going to slit our throats. Let's see. Glenn, respectfully, they have a ton of circumstantial evidence on Wendi. So much. Let's see. Brightest future. We love dads on our show, too. I should have just called it the Moms and Dads of Justice. She has kids. Ooh, that's awesome. She's a mama, too. That's awesome. Well, then maybe she'll pick Moms for Justice because she knows I'm a mom. And I'm a nice mommy. Maybe she'll pick me. Ava's mom, they weren't going to arrest Donna as fast as they did until she was on a one-way ticket to paradise. Crazy, right? She was so close to getting to Vietnam. And you know what's funny, guys? Did you ever guys think about this? Let's say she had made it to Vietnam. I don't think she would have been able to stay there. Not Donna. She'd be in some like thatched roof hut. She would be like, I am not living like this. And her butt would have been back in the States, and then she would have been arrested then too. So I don't think it mattered that she didn't make it there, because I think she would have come back. She wouldn't have stayed there. Hey, Michael, Wendy's 100% going to be charged, just a matter of when. Well, I'm hoping, because I want that trial to happen. And I want all the circumstantial evidence and all the things that we have questions about, and things like, you know, the why, the when, the owl, the bullet bourbon, the, you know, all the guys I think she was sleeping with. I want it all to come out, and I just want to, like, you know, find out what the deal is, right? I want to just know once and for all. I mean, why not, right? Look, all right, your case right now is as the best as it can get. There's not going to be any more evidence that they could get than what they have. So based on what they've got, you take the dice and you throw the dice and you do it and you give it a shot. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, then we'll know that it wasn't enough, and then everybody can be happy. That's my feeling. I'll tell you one thing. anybody that's pro Wendi needs to be nervous if she does get indicted, because that evidence is a lot. Okay? It's a lot. And so much so that why would there be thousands, tens of thousands of people, maybe it's more than that, hundreds of thousands of people, all see it and all see the same thing. We all see it. So you need 12 people. I would say that the likelihood that they're going to see what hundreds of thousands of people see is like really high. All right, let's see what else I got here for you. And that my video is going to be coming out really, really soon about this. I can't wait to show you guys all the goodies about these two cases and then put them together. All right, one of these questions, I kind of already know the answer, but I was thinking to myself, who has stronger evidence? Who has or had? And what I mean by that is Wendi Adelson versus Denise Williams. Well, obviously Denise Williams was she still says that she's innocent and that Brian basically, threw her under the bus. But she had nothing to do with killing Mike Williams. It was all Brian's idea. But you know what? What they had? The prosecution had Brian Winchester get on the stand and step by step talk about how they planned this murder. So obviously that is going to be stronger than anything against Wendi. Because there's, unless Charlie comes out, unless Charlie or Donna or somebody comes out and says something different, but there is more in volume of evidence towards Wendi, but it's not direct. It's more indirect. It's circumstantial. It's those moments. But the thing is that I hope they put women. If she should get indicted, I hope that they would put women on the jury. And you know why? Because we women, and no offense, guys. No offense, dads and guys. You guys are awesome too. And you know what? You do serve a purpose that we don't also, in terms of how you think about somebody like Wendi. But we girls, we know, right? We know what we would do in our everyday life. You wake up on that day, and we know that if we were genuinely going to go to lunch with our friends, we would have taken that shower earlier. We would have fixed ourselves up. We would not have told the TV repair guy about the joke. We also know one of the biggest things is we know our hearts and how we feel about our children and what a mother with her heart would do in a scenario like showing up and seeing the police. And we know that even if we fought the idea of, well, it can't be them because I know they're at daycare. Even if we have it, you can't fight your mother's instinct. You just can't. There's this thing in us, this forever till eternity, mother's gut instinct. And it's always to check, it's like OCD. You got some people, they have to wash their hands 10 times or they have to touch a doorknob 10 times. Well, when you're a mother, you got to check on your kids 10 times. And that's normal. That's not OCD. That's my point. So, I don't know. Okay, questions. Okay. All right. So, didn't Tim Jansen represent Denise Williams? Not that I know of. He represented Brian Winchester. No, she had a whole different attorney. Okay, well, so Tattletale says every parent doesn't have the same instinct. No, but the majority of mothers have this thing that we're just born with, that we just built to have when you have children. And I'm not saying all of them, but the majority of mothers, I think, would, despite fighting the fact that she thought her kids were at the daycare, would still fight it and get out of the car and ask, Are my kids are okay? Are they there? Could they? Because is it possible, right? Is it possible maybe they never did go? I have to double check. I need to double check for my soul. I have to know. Or maybe I'm not explaining myself well, but that okay, well, maybe somebody picked them up and drove them home. Maybe Dan, checked them out early after he went to the gym. That's if she didn't know he was being murdered, right? We're supposed to assume that Wendy's innocent, right? When she goes down to that tape. And what would an innocent mother do, right? So, and she is somebody that has been very combative on the stand when somebody says anything about her kids. She gets very mama bear, right? And then we also know that when she got picked up at Mosaic, that she was so worried about her kids. Well, where was the worry when you got to the tape? That's my point. Just common sense. And we women see that. At least the majority do. Sub Rosa, I hope Wendi doesn't hire Casey Anthony's lawyer. He's good at his job. Okay, Jose, what's the last name, guys? Baez. Jose Baez is like the OG. He's so good. I know that a lot of people don't like him, and nobody hates Casey Anthony more than me. Man, that attorney is incredible. He's amazing. And he's in Florida, right? And he also represented Aaron Hernandez, the football player, too. Let's see. Okay, so how much money does Wendi have? Is she banking on the boys? I think Wendi has a lot of money because I think she's it's coming in from Dan's, insurance, from a bunch of other things too. I don't remember every little document they talked about, but I know that she got $2 million, I think, totally in total. Now it's being handled by Shelley Markel, I believe, but Shelley Markel doesn't write checks to the boys. I don't think that has to go to Wendi because she's the adult that has to collect the money and then spend it on the kids. So she has to have control over that money. Lola Ritz says they get $4,000 per month. Yeah. And, and her current boyfriend, if they're even still together, I don't have a confirmation of that. But though he's not loaded rich, Dave Itel or one of those guys, I don't think he's broke either. I mean, I think he had a good job, but I don't think he's rich. Probably Donna's lawyers like Jackie Fulford. I like the other guy, though. I did. He seemed very sweet, and I think he just got a crappy case. But I cannot stand Jackie Fulford. All right. Isn't Jose Baez representing Shanna Gardner? Good question. I don't know. I'll look into it. You guys hear my stomach growling? That means this mom has to go eat because my stomach is always growling. I'm so sorry. I have to eat before I get on these lives with you guys. Okay, so Teresa says $4,800 per month from Social Security death benefits. All right. So, what do you guys think? I'm so excited to put out this video for you on Wendi and Denise. It's going to be really great. I'm going to go into a lot of detail for you. I also I'm going to keep my promise. I do have a video heading your way on Charlie Adelson. I'm finally going to do a deep dive on him and go into his relationships with June and Wendi Kick and a couple other girls too. So yeah, I'm going to be doing that. And I also want to talk about Karen Reed with Jocelyn at some point soon. We're going to come on because it's pretty amazing what's going on with Karen Reed right now. I don't know what your opinion is of Karen Reed. But, you know, as you know, there is a wrongful death suit at her, and she's turning around and throwing the kitchen sink at them. So, but anyway, I so appreciate y'all. And I'm so glad you got to spend this time with me and join my live. Yeah. I know, right, Karen Reed? It does get old, but I am interested to see what happens here with that. But anyway, did you guys like the video? Make sure you guys check out the merch store and make sure you're subscribing and share the channel and support your other Adelson Markel channels that are out there also. And I'll probably be back on really soon. But I so just love y'all, and just I look forward to my time with you guys. So thank you so much. All right. Love you guys. Bye.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the hosts and guests. All individuals mentioned are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law.